Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bobo Potzner, and I have a phenomenal show with you, not because of me, but because I have my most frequent appearing guest, Michele Phillips, on my show. In fact, perhaps the show should be changed to Michele Phillips, host Bobby O, but we'll talk about that some other time. And we're going to talk about so many things that Michele does. She's an author. She has a podcast. She speaks nationally, and she'll talk all about these different things she does. And she's just a lady with a great soul who her friends, and hopefully I'm her friend, is we call her Light Lady. So let me introduce to you today, Michele Phillips. Hi, Michele. How are you?
Hello, Bobby O. I am fantastic and thrilled to be here.
I'm really excited about what we want to talk about today. But before I get into your books, and this is the second book that we're featuring today called Energize Your Happiness. Her first book was Happiness is a Habit. I want to go a little bit of background for you, because even though a lot of people have seen you often on the show, they know you, but your story of your life is really significant to the book that you wrote and how you have progressed to be the awesome person that you were and still are.
Thank you. Thank you. So one of the chapters in my book is called Trust What Shows Up. And I've coined this saying, I don't know if I've coined it, but I say, follow the energy. And this, my life, and anyone listening or watching, if you backtrack your life and then you trust who and what shows up and you pay attention, you start to live an illumined life, right? That's where the light comes. We all have this light inside us, and it's up to us to turn it up and keep it burning. Unfortunately, some people forgot they have the key to their light. So backstory. Okay, Bobby, let me do my life story in 2 minutes or less. Back in 97, 98, I went to a Jack Canfield workshop, which changed my life out in Santa Barbara. And he really taught me that I'm the one that controls my energy, controls my light, controls what I think, do, and act. So I came home from Jack Canfield just fired up and thought, I'm going to change the world. I really didn't even know what that meant yet, but I knew this chose me. I didn't choose it. So fast forward at Fordham, going for my master's degree, and I gave a presentation called Leading with a Heart. I was pretty young at the time. I was probably late 20s, maybe 30. But I just spoke from my heart. I created this presentation about how you can lead with your head connected to your heart, connected to your gut or your intuition. And there was an executive from Greenwich, Connecticut, you're up in Connecticut, Fabio, who said to me, I want you to come train my executives. I was like, okay. I ran home that day so excited to my husband and said, I've got to write a full day program. I did not have one. I wrote a program. They brought me to their corporate retreat house in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. I mean, it was like this 22-bedroom mansion. It was gorgeous. And I gave this presentation full day to all the executives of this company from Greenwich, Connecticut. They all loved it. And every executive, the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the VP of HR, we want you to train our people. We want you to do this. The next thing you know, I was on their corporate jet flying out to Seattle. I don't know if I ever told you this, Bobby. They own Chateau Ste. Michelle Winery and Columbia Crest. And I flew out and I trained all their employees on the West Coast. And they became my very first client. Now, there's so much of this story. I was still working full time at Verizon Wireless. I was moonlighting. And in 2000, I jumped ship. I have been giving corporate workshops in Fortune 100 and 500 companies, doing executive coaching for the last 25 years.
So if I do the math, you're about 32 years old, if I figure out my math correctly.
Exactly.
We got to tell a story how we first met, because it ties in to the fact that what you raised in Happiness is a Habit and also Energize Your Happiness, because part of the themes in your book are, I don't want to put it in my words, we'll put it in your words, but be open to different things in life and make yourself the best person you can be. And that's part of your theme. And I said it my way, not your way. You say it much better in your books. But I was flying about 13 years ago to see my daughter, who was attending Miami of Ohio. And we had a flight from LaGuardia JetBlue to Chicago and transfer. And this lady Michele Phillips, who I didn't know, her eyes were tearing. And she said, "Sir, would you mind watching my baggage?" And she only had about 4 bags. And I said, "How do you want me to watch? You don't know who I am." She said, "You know what? I have trust in people, whatever." So she came back. The bags were still there. The flights got delayed, this and that. We ended up speaking for about 5 or 6 hours on the plane, in the airport, whatever. And the funny story was that she said to me, "So, Bob, what's your sign?" And I said, "Scorpio." She said, "So's mine." She said, "What's your birthday?" I said, "November 5th." She said, "So's mine." Now, being the person I am, I said, "I don't believe you." So what did Bobby O say?
Take out your driver's license.
I took out her driver's license, and we have been friends ever since. And she has been so much a part of my life since then. And the point of the story is that she was open enough to see someone. And I don't know how you judged that I wouldn't steal your stuff in your bags, but you just trusted me. But isn't that part of who you are as a person?
Well, it's part of who I've cultivated myself to be. We're all energy, and emotions are emoting. We don't, we don't see them, but we feel them. And a lot of us, a lot of people have unfortunately been programmed from the neck up. What do you think? What do you think? And I always want to know, what do you feel? So when you're with people, you feel them. And that's such a good example, Bobby, that a lot of people miss opportunities because if you think about when you're stressed and you're frustrated or you're untrusting, you're kind of closed, your head's down, you're tight, and you're not open to the magic of the world. And research has been done that proves the only thing different about people who were lucky versus people who are not lucky, as the lucky people, they believe they're lucky and they're open to possibilities. So in one study, the researchers placed like $100 bill on the sidewalk, but the frustrated closed people, right, with their earphones on, not looking, they trudged right by it. The open, relaxed person, $100 on the ground. So we're missing a lot of opportunities by closing ourselves off. So I have so many mantras. One of my other mantras is just stay open. The world is going to sucker punch you. It's going to rip the carpet out from under you and it's going to hurt, but don't close. Stay open.
Hemingway once said, "Luck is a residue of design." Luck is a residue of design. And that flies right into you. We're getting ahead of our story a little bit, but I'm going to give you a quote. And I recently spoke at a rally called Justice Southbury, which has met 294 consecutive weeks to talk about justice in America. And they asked me to speak this past Sunday in light of what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good. And you see on the bottom of my graphic, it says, "Renee Good, rest in peace, democracy first." But one of the themes, and I went back to your book, of course, and I picked out certain quotes I liked, and one I wanted to raise, which was you said on page 106, because Bobby O is a lawyer, it said, quote, "The bad news is that time flies. The good news is that you are the pilot," unquote. And that just ties in both in themes to both of your books, which is that I could have sat there and said, "Hey, lady," I could have been around New Yorker, right? I could have been in New Yorker and say, "Hey, lady, go watch your own blanket bags," right?
All right.
But you had this look in your eyes that was your lady of honesty and whatever. And so we both opened up and we've shared so much in terms of the books, etc. But I think that perspective about how you are the pilot of your life is so significant. Do you want to comment a little about that one?
We are. Each of us has this opportunity to craft a beautiful life. And we all have so much energy. One of my first rules in the book, it's energize your happiness. And I call them energy rules, which is kind of a play on words because energy rules. Like when you have energy, you rule. But also there's rules to energy. And energy is at your service. And when I use the word energy, I'm talking about mental, physical, spiritual, emotion. Your emotions are energy. So each of us is given this beautiful amount of energy, and where we focus it determines the result. And this is based in research, right? Neuroscience and research shows that where we focus our attention, whatever we focus on gets bigger. Now, think about where, anybody watching right now, where have you focused your energy in the last 24 to 48 hours? Has it been on things that help you and feed you, inspire, motivate, and educate you? Or has it been on things that upset you, bring you down, and drag you under? So I'm not saying to live with your head under a stone, but I am saying you have control of your energy. And the most freeing thing I've ever done was I've stopped giving my energy to things I don't control. And, time flies. I don't control that time's flying, but I control that I get to steer the ship. I choose what I think, what I believe, and how I behave each day.
Well, and we're sort of jumping around, which is great because we always do. That's who we are. We jump around different topics because we do this as a free flow. When I was asked to do that speech for Justice Southbury, and I was going to talk about Renee Good, I was thinking about, there's going to be something that Michele told me in her book. She didn't tell me, she told her readers. But when I read a book from Michele, I always look at it, she wrote it for Bobby O because I have such an ego, right? And I said, I can't control, and we're not getting into this show about my feelings about what the ice did, whatever. That's a different show, which I'm going to have on several occasions. But I'm thinking, now, how do I take something I cannot control, which is this lady gets killed after saying words like, I'm not mad at you, to the ICE representative, assuming he was a representative. And I'm saying, and then she got shot. I'm trying to think, how can I take this thing I can't control and use it to convey a message to a group of 50 or 100 people who I was going to speak to? And I said, you know what? I can take that incident and talk about, or that tragedy, and talk about how I'm dealing with that and how I want to send the message about what we can do and what we should do. Again, not being an ostrich. And so what I did was, and Michele's going to laugh because she knows this already. You wouldn't think I'm a rap fan, but Eminem is a group, a person, I guess you'd call him, who does songs. And there's one song about don't blow your opportunity. Don't blow your opportunity. And so I brought that and I played that at the beginning of the presentation, because that was my way to say, people, we can't control what's happening. We're going to write our congressman. We're going to do this, but I've got to deal with it. So I put that music and I danced. Michelle's the whole thing. And I danced a little rap thing to it, not to belittle what's going on, but to be my way of approaching something I cannot control. The audience loved it. Any comments about my doing that, Michele? Does it tie in?
Yes, because we don't control. There are atrocities played out on our screens, daily that we have no control over. But I love that you took control. You don't control certain things, but you control how you show up, and you chose to show up in love and joy and to advocate for what you want. You want freedom of speech. You want justice. So it's really advocating for what you want versus resisting what you don't want. And at the end of the day, we are all connected. And the dance that you did connects hearts and minds. And it reminds us that what are our values? All of us Americans. Most Americans are good people with good hearts. So, and we have similar values. So I believe we're in a crisis of consciousness, thinking we're not alike when we are more alike than we think we are. And doing things that bring us together versus push us apart, which is exactly what you did with how you approached your presentation, and bringing on the music, because music is the universal language that we all can relate to. Beautiful.
And truth be told, I spent about 45 minutes or more on the phone with Michele that day, getting myself off the roof. And Michele, on your graphic, it says you are alarmingly enthusiastic. You are as enthusiastic as that can be. I actually sent a little text to Michele saying I tried to reach the flight attendant who got us together in the plane, but I couldn't get it. I was teasing. But and the phrase alarmingly enthusiastic ties into your books that you've written. Where did that come from?
Well, I it's funny because somebody wrote that on one of my evaluations many years ago. And when they wrote it, I don't think they meant it as a compliment. But when I was younger, I used to tap down my joy, tap down my happiness. When you get a handle on this, these are all the skills I talk about in both books are teachable, accessible, and easy to implement immediately. You do not need to get a degree. You do not need to spend time in your target heart rate zone or count calories. Not that those things are a bad idea, but all of my ideas are easy to apply. And what happens is when you start getting good at them, you gain traction. When that rubber hits the road, your energy raises and it's just so fun and you're having more fun. Again, people that aren't having fun do not like to be around people that are having fun. So I always say happy, confident people make you feel happy and confident too. But I don't have a secret ingredient here. And that's why I'm sharing all this. I want to like shout it from the rooftops. There are steps, there are things that you could do right now to raise your energy, change your perspective, and make today a better day.
Yeah, I used to talk about the fact that I often would judge people, and not that I'm being judgmental, but you'd also, you can't be a little bit judgmental. I can judge people by who their friends are because like attracts like. And when I was reading your book, and we talked about how essentially you don't say it this way. And when I'm saying things, these are just my read of your book. But it's like, when you see the kinds of friends people have, if the glass is half empty, you're going to have people around you more so who might be a little pessimistic. If it's half full, then when you go to the book launching of this book at Michele Phillips and meet all her friends, you say, wait a minute, they're all just like she is. And perhaps my director may now transition and show us, because I was invited on December 13th, unfortunately the day of the Brown shooting, which I had to listen to the whole way back, 2.5 hour ride, but I kept my energy positive. We were at the Sunset Theater, and let's see some of those pictures, please, Candy Ann, that show my attendance at her book launching, and we'll get to the book more so. Who is that handsome guy next to that beautiful woman? Oh, that's the Bobby O. And that's a copy of the book front, which was, who designed that anyway? The book
well, I have a beautiful assistant, Shay, who lives out in Minneapolis. She designed it, but it's and Dawn, let me say, so Shay made the step and repeat, but Dawn, my beautiful friend Dawn Nagel is a wonderful artist who designed the book cover. So let me give credit to Dawn Nagel. It was actually a painting that she had done of fireworks over a church. And we took the top of the painting and then she put the Energize Your Happiness on top. And I absolutely love the cover she created.
Really cool. By the way, you have a beautiful dress and all your friends said so. That's the book itself. That's the cover. And what's the next one after this one? That's when what Michele did at that launch. She was taking questions from the audience and they were not set up questions. And she would just answer them. She was talking about the book itself, which we're going to get into in a few more minutes. That's a great shot of you, Michele.
Thank you.
Now, this picture ties into the next picture. What are we getting ready for before the next picture? What are we getting ready for?
So when my first book came out, I used to always take pictures with my arms in the air. And one of my high school friends said to me, Michele, you always have your arms in the air. Why don't you do a star jump? And I said, what is a star jump? And she said, you make a star with your body and you jump your feet off the ground. So ever since then, I have been doing star jumps, and everywhere I go, people want to do star jumps with me. That is my beautiful friend's husband, Ed DeMonico, behind me, and he is a master star jumper. He star jumps wherever he is in the world and sends me pictures. And today we got to do one together, so that would be the next shot.
There it is. That's the star jump, and that's Michele's. I know, with her mouth always open. There you go. And it's funny because Ed's married to Stacy, who's your friend, and Stacy wrote a book also, which I'm reading now. And I usually don't have authors on my show until I've read the books. And she has agreed to be on the show sometime in March of 2026.
She is brilliant.
She's really cool. And she's also a cancer survivor, which is just, her story is awesome. But getting back to your book, you had mentioned Jack Canfield. And everyone may not realize that Jack Canfield was one of the co-authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Chicken Soup series. And I'm going to read to you the comments he made about your book, which are very short but very pithy, very good. He said, and this is going to give you the enthusiasm to want to read the book and learn what Michele's trying to teach us. Michele Phillips has brilliantly captured the essence of personal transformation and energy alignment in her new book. Drawing from decades of experience and wisdom, she's very wise. She offers practical insights that empower readers to harness their true potential and write their own outcomes. Keep that phrase in mind, folks. Write your own outcome. It ties in to something else we'll talk about. Michele's work is not just a guide. It's a roadmap to living a fulfilled and purpose-driven life. I'm thrilled to endorse this transformative work that will undoubtedly inspire and empower countless individuals. And at the very start of her book, what Michele does is she puts certain quotes, and I love the first one on page Roman numeral 13.
Good.
She says, because one believes in oneself, one does not try to convince others. Because one is content with oneself, one does not need others' approval. That's a great line. One does not need others' approval. Because one accepts oneself, the whole world accepts him or her. And that's written by Lao Tzu. Is that how it's pronounced?
Lao Tzu, yeah.
Lao Tzu. And if you knew Michele and me off camera, off film, off writing, that's who we are. We're open to positives. And what she does in her book, I'm going to get to this second book, Energize Your Happiness, is she talks about certain things that she came up with as she tells you her life story. And there are things about her that are very personal that she chose to share. I'm not sure if I would have shared as much as you did, Michele. So let me do this to you. The next first quote from the book is, the book you are about to read has been a work in progress for a decade. The changes and challenges on the planet and in my own life over the past 10 years have been monumental and have generated in me a spiritual and energetic awakening, and in some ways a different way of being. Let's talk about that in more detail. How did you use that in your book?
Yeah, so back up. I just published Happiness is a Habit. Things were going really well, and the division in our country was mounting, and violence was everywhere on our screen, and social media was squeezing us together like never before. And I, being a communications expert, felt, I'll just help save the world and share my ideas. And every conversation I had really left me exhausted. And there's a quote I remember very strongly: a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And I had a crucial decision in my life. Did I want to be in an exclusive group of people that thought just like me? Or did I want to broaden my world? And while I don't agree, I have my own opinions. I have my own political party. I get my vote. I decided I didn't want to shrink my world, because I'm smart enough to know that even two people, even if Bobby O and I agree on everything and we start talking every day, eventually we are going to disagree. So that is what I realized, that it wasn't that everyone was attempting to get the other to think like them. And what I realized is I was out of alignment. I was out of what I call my personal energy alignment. And when you're in alignment, and I'm going to describe this for people, and if you are, the athlete will call it the zone, the positive psychologist would call it the flow state. Anytime you're in a state of like time is flying, you could be having that runner's high, you could be dancing, you could be painting, you could be writing an email. There's a lot of things that get us in that flow state, but then you are mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally in that personal energy alignment. And when you are there, you are powerful. Anytime you are worried, anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed, competitive, you get spit out of your zone. So what I wanted to teach people was how to get themselves into their own personal energy alignment and then go help the world. I'm not saying to not help the world, but it's almost like I equate it to a person standing on 2 feet. When you are in that zone, man, on 2 feet, you are sturdy. But if I was standing on one leg, you could easily knock me over. And that's what happens when we're overwhelmed, angry, anxious, and we go out and try to do things.
You've mentioned this phrase, personal energy alignment, and that the acronym is PEA, and that's mentioned throughout your book. And actually, I wrote it down several times so that I wouldn't forget what it meant. I do that when I'm reading sometimes, and whenever I just read a book on from Carol Lennick about injustice, et cetera. And there's a lot of initials, but in your situation, PEA struck me, personal energy alignment. That is a theme throughout your book. What is personal energy alignment, and why is that significant in your spreading happiness and helping people energize for themselves their happiness? Explain, please.
Yeah, it goes back to the old adage of, that old example we always give of put your oxygen mask on first in the airplane before you help someone else. And if we are emotionally drained, physically drained, spiritually drained. I'm missing one, mentally drained. We don't have anything left to give. And a lot of people are just, the energy has been sucked out of them. They are like wet towels and they're out there trying to make a difference. But when I take care of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, I'm sturdy. My foundation is sturdy. And now I am influential. So I want to teach people how to achieve this state of energy alignment, regardless of what's going on outside in the world. This has more to do with what's going on inside your world. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions lead to your actions. So personal energy alignment is that beautiful feeling of just think about when you're driving your car and it's not aligned, it's constantly pulling you off the road. But when you're driving an aligned vehicle, it feels good. I want to teach people, I am teaching people how to get into that alignment on a regular Wednesday. It doesn't have to happen when you climbed a mountain or you got a trophy or you got a gazillion followers. I want to teach you that level of engagement, and it's been proven when you do things for yourself, research shows mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally on a regular basis, you feel better, you're more secure, and then you do better. When you feel better, you do better. So that's what I'm trying to teach people. And I'm going to go into Energizio. Can I do that now, Bobby, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
I couldn't find Energizio in Webster's dictionary. Why is that?
Because I made it up. I love to play with, I'm Spanish and Italian. I like speaking Italian and Spanish. So I made up this word, Energizio. And it's basically, as I said earlier, we all have so much energy, but so many people are they're sloppy with their energy. They're spending their energy doom scrolling, watching the 24-hour news cycle, complaining, judging, blah, blah, blah. Take that beautiful energy and focus it. I give the example when you go outside on a sunny day and you take a magnifying glass and a pile of leaves, you take all that energy of the sun and you zero it in and you start a fire. Your focus is the same. I want people to realize you have that same level of energy. So Energizio is energy and action focused towards your goals. It's not just willy-nilly focused wherever you feel like it. It's really serious. I know what I want. I know where I'm going, and I'm focusing my energy in the direction I want. I'm Energizioing the day, kind of like Carpe Diem.
The analogy I'm thinking about is a football player who's instead of going to the next play, spends about 10, 20, 30 seconds arguing with the referee, yelling and screaming, whatever. And you're thinking, you know what? You only have so much energy to play in any particular game. You just wasted 30 seconds. Maybe on the next play, you won't have the energy to knock the guy over. That's what you're kind of talking about. And in your book, you have, I think it's about 20 Energizios, and hablo español, solamente no italiano here. But the last Energizio you had, which I was going to read to, and I'll do it right now. This is trust in what shows up. Energy rules exercise. Go back and piece together the timeline of your life and the events that had to happen to make you who you are today. Capture dates, events, and people who have had a significant impact on your life. Look for the gold, the lessons, and how each event needed to happen for you to be the beautiful soul who is reading these words. There are no accidents. I think that is a great conclusion, almost as good as the ending to the Sopranos TV show. It's a great end to a great book. And I think I read that about 3 or 4 times because I was so impressed with that. And then I went back to the beginning of the book to see how it connected. How'd you come up with that sort of the end game of the end Energizio?
Well, so many people will tell me, well, what if my life wasn't what I wanted? I didn't have the childhood I wanted. My parents didn't have any money, whatever it is. I am a firm believer that there are no coincidences. And the word coincidence is the word coincide, which means when it fits perfectly. So if I look at everything, every single person that comes into my life, whether I like them or not, is here to teach me something, or I'm there to teach them something. And there's a quote from the Course in Miracles I love that says, all the work is mine. All the work is mine. If I get a ornery person that I'm working with, it's my work to figure out how to handle them. And that's what I believe. And I think if people really look back, I had a woman years ago say to me, she had some abuse in her childhood. And, how did I choose that, Michele? What do you mean I chose that? And I said, no, I'm not saying you chose that. I'm saying that has made you the badass, brilliant leader that you are today. That bad experience has really molded you. And another quote that's coming to mind is, we could use our energy to help us, or we could use our energy to hurt us. The amount of work is the same. That's what I mean by that.
In my divorce practice, unfortunately, there are cases I have where there's abuse between spousals. I've done some shows with Dr. Cucciolo on coercive control. And sometimes, and this is what breaks my heart sometimes. And what I do is, it's heartbreaking sometimes. And if you take it seriously, which I do, and you'll get sometimes a victim of abuse, and you'll hear like, what did I do wrong? Why am I being, and I often in those kind of cases will bring in a therapist to help me, because I think a good person in any field knows what he or she does not know. And I would call myself an amateur psychologist, because you can't, in my 40 years of experience, not have some sense, but I don't know the right words always to say. So I'll bring in an expert sometimes to help us to understand, to explain that, none of us is perfect. Not even Michele Phillips, I think, is, I don't know, is that possible? But we aren't perfect, but we aren't the one who caused the abuse.
Yeah. And can I say something to that? I really believe that there's a gym on every corner. There should be a therapy, store on every corner, or every person deserves a therapist, a psychiatrist, someone who can help them, because we all have stuff to work through. Working out our emotional well-being should be as important as working out our bodies.
I went to a divorce case in which the parents lost a child in a tragedy. And the other lawyer, who's an excellent lawyer, she and I talked about the thing. We said, you know what? We need to bring a mental health professional into our negotiating sessions. We did a divorce by what they call collaborative divorce, where you try to do things more amicably if possible. You still advocate, but you do more amicably. And we both, the other lawyer and I said, we can't handle this sometimes. Yeah. And I would say to you, if we had 15 meetings, somebody cried at each of the 15 meetings that we had. And it could have been any of us, the lawyers, the therapists, whatever, but having someone who could help us deal with things, because sometimes I might say something stupid, believe it or not, and inadvertently hurt someone. So that's what we do. And that's why your thought isn't out of the realm of reality. I'm looking right now, by the way. Do you have a comment on that before I go on?
I do. I think, really the biggest thing in my book, and people think, oh, well, you're happy all the time. No, I have every emotion. You always tease me, call me when you're angry and having road rage, because I have my moments on the LIE. But the thing about this is you feel all your emotions, and tears, we're so embarrassed of our tears. Tears have stress hormones in them. Honor our truth. If tears are coming, let them flow. I always tell people you can only cry for so long, and there is no shame. So I want people to feel all their emotions, but then I want them to write the outcome.
That's a true story, because one day I got a phone call from Michele, and she said, I'm on the LIE and I'm having road rage now, and I wanted to show you that I really do get road rage. That feels better. And then we had a conversation. That's a true story. But I want to go to your energy rule number 18. And that title of that section is it's actually number 19. I know my glasses on. Create your party verse. When I saw the title, I said, what is this Meshuggah? I'm teasing Michele talking about your party verse. And then as I read it, it was really cool. You want to talk about your party verse and what that's all about?
Yeah, we're all here creating our reality, and we don't realize we have so much say in it. The quote I read this morning before I meditated was, Stop playing so small. You are the universe in action. You are the universe in action. So, what kind of world do you want to live in? I want to live in a partyverse where I want to find other people to play with. So, that's why I engage people on airplanes and at the post office, and I talk to everybody. Not everybody wants to engage, and being emotionally intelligent is important to know. Some people want their space, and I'm happy to give you your space. But I think what's so interesting is the more you open up to life, like the more you love life and love people, the more life and people love you back. And then I started having what I was calling magic carpet days, where, the Uber driver was in a good mood and I got upgraded 16 times. Delta just sent me, I got upgraded 16 times this year alone. You get upgraded, you get to the hotel and the guy at the front desk is in a good mood. And then you have a great seminar and everything's easy. Everything's easy. There's no drama. So again, and then that becomes your norm. That's what I want to teach people. Again, scientifically proven, our brains respond to what we focus on. Most people are too busy talking about what they don't want and what they don't like, and they get more of what they don't want and more of what they don't like. So the more you talk about what you do want and what you do like, the more you get it. And then and let me even back this up a little, Bobby. I want people to connect the fact that they're creating their good day. It's kind of like we say the cake is baked with love, because we know that baker put their love into this cake. When you put your love into your life, you're the one that's creating it. And that's what everyone has, that choice.
I guess what you're saying is you catch more bees with honey. Is that what you're?
Yeah, of course. Try it on. I say you try it on. You be the judge.
In your book, which I found because of what I do professionally, I almost, if I were standing up, I would have fallen down. And in your book, when I first met you, and I wouldn't mention this on the show now, except you put it in your book, and so I guess it's all free, all no holds barred. But you were in the middle of getting divorced, and you started telling me your story, and I was listening carefully, and I think you commented about how much I was listening, all that, and it was a difficult time for you. But in your book, I'm reading all of a sudden, and now you got divorced, you got remarried to Gary, and the three of you, the first husband, who must be dumb as a stump to let you go, I'll tell you right now. The first husband, the second husband, and you are all friends. I'm saying, what? Now, I want you to explain that to me. How did you put together the mental set to have the three of you, and including the new husband, all friends? I read it right in the book, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Basically, it wasn't easy. I'm not going to pretend like this just happened overnight, but it was a decision I made early on. And the word decide comes from the Latin to cut, right? You cut, like I made a decision that said, I am going to have a spiritual divorce. At the time, I really didn't even know what that meant. But in my heart, I knew I love this person with all my heart. I didn't want to be with them anymore. And I wanted to uncouple. That's the word now. That word wasn't a word when I did this, but I wanted us to uncouple cooperatively. It took a good 3 years, I'll be honest, for our emotions to calm down to a level where we weren't flying with, just hurt emotions and anger, and just there was a lot happening. But once we were able to calm down and have conversation, we used one lawyer. We both decided, you take this, you take that. Here's what I want. Here's how it's going to go. We went to the one lawyer. We signed the sheet. We paid a couple $1,000s, and we went on with our lives. Now, fast forward, I meet Gary, and Gary came from England, and my one friend says to me, Michele, how did you meet two guys that are good with like fixing things and tools and building things? So Gary comes to the United States and he has no tools. And he would say to me, I need this, I need that. And I was like, oh, Stephen has that. Stephen has that. So I would call Stephen, can we borrow the drill? Can we borrow this? And we were borrowing things. So we lived near each other.
Stephen's the first husband, right?
Yeah. We lived near each other at the time. So we're borrowing things. After a while, I said to Stephen and Gary, I'm cutting me out of the middle here. You guys take the numbers, and they took the numbers, and they just became friends. And it happened organically. And because all of us had no animosity, and then Gary and I moved to Long Island, and we wanted to move a bunch of shrubs one day. and we needed a machine. And Steven, my first husband, is really good at running machinery. So Gary rents the machine. He calls up Steve, can you come to Long Island? The two of them spent the entire weekend. I was in the house. I didn't even go outside. Out in the backyard, digging up bushes, moving them. Steven slept over. We went to dinner with friends. When Steven left on Sunday night and Gary and I laid down to go to sleep, he looked at me and he goes, that was so fun. And I thought, oh my gosh, you guys had fun together. So again, your party versus what you create. And I'm going to have a podcast with the three of them. That's my next goal.
Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, I am not handy with tools, so I would not fit in with those two guys. That's number one. But number two,
you have your own special skills.
I hope so. That's why you sort of keep me around. But number two, I will say this to you. Gary is one hell of a nice guy. I met him for the first time. And I could see when you mentioned him in the book, and I hadn't met him in all these 13 years, although I'm sure he heard my name along the way, but I guess those collect phone calls. I'm only teasing. but as I met him, I could just see, you're very talkative and Gary is very not talkative. But I can see how you used your skills to have this whole threesome to be a very nice group of people, but I don't see that very often. In fact, about 2 hours before the show today, I got a phone call from a former client who got divorced a few years ago, I guess. And this client called and said, my ex is doing bump and is not doing bump. What are you going to do for me? And I said, what I'm going to do for you is tell you, go work it out yourselves because you don't want lawyers involved. But the point is that that's a more typical, unfortunately, reaction. So I give you credit, and a lot of the skills you talk about in your book, and I'm sure you had a good part of what you do that helped make that a positive interaction.
Can I add something real quick too?
Oh, you could do anything. You're Michele.
We have no children. I really want to specify that too, because people that get divorced that have children, here's the thing: you are going to be in each other's lives for the rest of your life. And you need to figure out how to get along. You don't have to like each other, but you need to be civil. We did not have children, so there was no reason for us to be in each other's lives other than the fact that, I tease Steve and my first husband, I say, I would marry you again tomorrow, knowing that we would divorce because of everything I learned in our marriage.
You would marry him. You would marry him again.
Because I learned a lot from him. So I think people have to realize what they learned. Some things I like, some things I didn't like, but I still learned.
Okay, so even though we're not married, I'm going to get divorced from you so I can be involved in your life thereafter. Is it? It's funny that it's not funny. It's ironic. In cases I have, sometimes people will get, and I'll say this to you: people in their divorce process are except for terminal family things, health wise, it's the worst stage of their life. And a matter of fact, I will tell you something I never said to you before, and that is, even though I didn't really know you, although it took us about 3 minutes to really get to know each other the first time on the airplane, etc. When you started talking about the issues in your divorce, and I was not your attorney, it was a different state. I wasn't licensed in that state, but we were just talking. We were talking as two human beings who were very obviously connected and had good chemistry going on. I could see, now maybe it's because of what I do for a profession, but I could see your face changed. The glow in your eyes wasn't there. The whole body language, which I follow a lot, was different when you were talking about something that was difficult, which at that time was hard for you. And that goes right to the point of your book about trying to deal with things in a way that's best for you, helps you in all ways. Am I making sense for what you said in your book?
Yeah, I want people to feel that was a horrible time. I was scared. I was lonely. I forgot what it was like to be lonely because I had been with him since I was in my 21, 20 years. And then all of a sudden I'm by myself. And I remember at the end of the day thinking like nobody cares where I am at the end of the day. And people did. I have my parents, I had my friends, but that one phone call you give like, oh, I'm going to bed, or I'll see you later, or where are you? I didn't have that check-in, and it was a very lonely time. But again, I think what got me through it was knowing it was temporary. And that's what I want to teach people. Everything is temporary. So knowing that this too shall pass, and that I had the tools to keep getting up every morning, working out, eating healthy, having my good music, my support friends, which I write about in the first book, really helped me get through hard times. And that's not, then my dad passed away 2 years ago. So the hard times are real. Life is real. The world will rip the carpet out from under you. But when you have the tools, you are more resilient. So that's, of course, when you're hurting, you see it and you feel it.
And I didn't make that comment to make you feel badly. It was just,
no, not at all.
It is an observation that I made. Also in your book, I thought fascinating is you said you were not a big reader. And you can see behind me, these are all books. And except for your 2 books, I maybe have only 3 other books that are soft covered. They're all pretty much hard covers. I don't do Kindle. It's got to be real books. And I do a lot of reading. And you said you were not a reader until at some point in time in your life. And then you became you read anything you get your hands on. If books were calories, if they're hot fudge sundaes, you'd be 400 pounds. But you read all these books, and you can see in your book how you picked this thread, that thread, and a third thread, and tied things together in your unique style. You talk about how reading became important to you and how you've used that to both write for others, but really you are really together in what you do because of that, although I have seen you weren't quite as together, right?
Yeah, books are magical. Books, I didn't read till my 30s, so let's go there. Like I wasn't one of those young girls reading Jane Austen or the Hardy Boys or what Nancy Drew, whatever those books were. I didn't read.
Chip Hilton.
Yeah. I read magazines and went to college, and in probably my early 30s, somebody at work handed me the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book. Then my first client from Fordham, she handed me Many Lives, Many Masters, this spiritual book. And then someone handed me another client, Ramtha, which is another spiritual book. So these books are making their way to my life. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have time to read a book. Well, this is crazy. What are these people? And then they were spiritual books, and I was in the corporate world. So one year, 1997, I set a goal that I would read a book a quarter. That's what I said. I'm going to read 4 books this year. I will read 10 pages a day. I started out in January 1997 reading 10 pages a day. And by the end of the year, I read 30 books. And these books changed my life so much. I have not stopped. I probably read 30 books a year consistently. I always have 2 books actual going in print. I've got a couple going on audio, mostly nonfiction. I do sprinkle in some fiction. I have a book club. But again, there's so much knowledge out there, and we're not tapping into it. So the one thing the challenge I give people is, what is your balance of entertainment versus education? So many people are online doom scrolling and playing video games and on the internet, and they're not feeding themselves anything of significance. So it's kind of like eating, fast food for 30 days. I have gotten such a benefit from the books that I can't stop now. I'm just I'll read. I said to Gary the other day, I said I have to stop buying them. They're easier to buy than read, and my stack of unread books over there is getting pretty big.
I got 30 unread books here. What do you have?
Probably about 10, 15, yeah.
But Energize Your Happiness jumped the line. It just jumped. I was reading 1929 about why the Depression is a nonfiction, and I wanted to read Carol Lenning's book about injustice because I'm really torn up about what's going on in our society. I can't believe that people are letting things happen. And it goes to your book where you say you create your own life. But I think, boy, if you watch the movie Nuremberg, there are so many parallels to where we are today that people better wake up. And as they make their lives together per your book, they can help address things. But that's not what the theme about is today. But when I read your book and you got so personal about things, why did you write the second book, Energize Your Happiness? Why did you write that? And why did you tell so many very personal stories? I'm going to get to one in a moment, but why did you do that?
Because of what's going on in the world. Because we are in a place in our evolution where everyone's trying to force everyone to be, do, think like they think. And, there's a great quote, we live on, you can't choose up sides on a round planet. And I found myself out of alignment, out of my personal energy alignment. And I wrote the book because I wanted to help hearts and minds open. I want people to see you have so much more control than you think. Both of my books have come out of my own insecurities, my own doubts, my own fears. I am a regular person trying to get through the day like anyone else. And I want to make sure that my footprint on this earth is one of service. And the more people I could touch with these words, that because the words touched me and they go, oh, I said, oh, I could have a spiritual divorce. What's that, Michele? I don't know. I got the idea. So then people say, oh, maybe I want a spiritual divorce. So that's why I write, because I want other people to open up their eyes to new ways of seeing, living, and processing the events of their life.
And you have a huge heart. If a friend of yours called you up and said, I've got a flat tire, you'd run out and fix the tire. If they called me, I'd call AAA. But I want to carry into what we talked about, and that is that to be so personal to the world. I mean, a lot of things that you've told me over our 13 years, I realize we talked as who we are, who we and I are connected as. But there's some things you told the world, and I will tell you there are about 2 or 3 topics that I've never raised to you, one of which, because I thought they were really personal, and one of which was that you didn't have children. And you went into that discussion in your book in great candor. And of course, the reason one never talks to someone, I hate when my son just got engaged and I can hear people saying, so when are you going to have, kids, that kind of thing. But you were very candid about that. So my 2 questions are, A, why did you choose to talk about it? And number 2, talk a little bit about your decision making, and it made a lot of sense for you. Although I think the world has lost a lot by you're not having kids because you're such a wonderful person. But respond to those 2 questions about why you got into it and your decision not to. And if I'm getting too personal, that would be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time.
No such thing. Because I want you to tell the truth. People have to tell the truth. And when we don't tell the truth, we're so afraid to tell the truth. You go, how are you? I'm good. Well, you're really not good. 9 out of 10 people aren't good, but we say we're good. So when it came time to having children, I had to tell the truth to myself. And I asked myself, Michele, why do you want children? And my answer was, oh, they'd be really cute, or they could take care of me when I'm old. And I thought, that is a really crappy reason to have a child. I didn't say, I want to develop a human being in the world. That's the right answer. I want to nurture and develop another human. And at the time, in my late 20s, early 30s, that was not the answer I gave myself. Some people don't want to buy a house. We have these, what I call the unwritten rules of society, which say, go to college, get married, buy a house, have 2.3 children, and live, till you retire. And I really want people to ask themselves, what do you want? And so I tell my story, not so you could say, look at me or whatever. I tell my story to impress upon you that you have a choice. What kind of life do you want to live? I have a friend who is on her second, she's not married. She got divorced, and her, I guess boyfriend, but they've been boyfriend for like 20 years. Significant other, that's the word. He gave her this beautiful commitment ring. It's a giant diamond. They live in separate apartments or separate condos in the same condo complex. You write the rules to your life based on what's good for you. And that's why I share my stories, because I hope you go, oh, so many people just do what they think they're supposed to. They take the job because the money looks good and the ego, it sounds good. But then they get into the position, they go, I hate this job. So I want people to examine their choices and decisions, because when you are aligned with your choices and decisions, you feel better. Personal
energy alignment.
Yes.
It's funny. And if you talk to Michele, sometimes we're on the phone, sometimes we see each other, whatever, or on Zoom. If I give her a book that I said, hey, I learned something in a book, I could see her or feel her writing it down. And the other day we did our prep, and we do about a 5-minute prep show versus my typical prep for a show is about an hour, because we know what we're going to say anyway. And then we don't. And then it comes out in all different ways. This show today did not come out as we planned it. It just is us talking, but we got the theme across. I was telling the Duke basketball coach, you could tell that, although I went to Yale undergraduate and Duke Law School, I'm a fan of both schools. But Mike Krzyzewski, the retired Duke coach, Coach K used to say, don't look back, turn the page. Don't look back, turn the page. And I've had so many friends. I remember in law school, the young lady who was very bright in our class and was talking about, gee whiz, if I take this big job out of law school, how it'll affect my having time for kids. Then I have friends and clients that, gee whiz, I did have kids, but not my career. I wish I had the career. And what's it, Robert Frost, Two Roads, Diverse, and Yellow Wood? You got to make your choices. But when you make your choices, it's my opinion that you can't look back and say, gee, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Because as Carrie Bradshaw once said in Sex and the City, don't shoulda all over yourself. Comment, please.
Yeah, exactly. You know how both of us made choices maybe we would make differently in hindsight? Yeah. But again, I always say what's behind you, exactly like you said, turn the page. What's behind us is dry cement. It's over. I can't change it. But what's in front of us all is this beautiful wet cement that we can affect and mold and change. So take what's behind you and use it to create something beautiful going forward. So 1000% agree with you, Bobby.
By the way, to our viewers in the show today, this is like Michele and me just having a conversation over milkshake,
Yeah.
Shake Shack or whatever. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity to just talk about your book, your theme, whatever you want to talk about, to tell people why you wrote, what your views are, anything you didn't say so far that you want to get across. And we forgot to mention, we didn't show the video I was going to show, which I think we could show right now, but also you have a podcast, which has got a great name, which is called what? Write Your Outcome.
Yeah,
So
the podcast. Yeah,
ahead.
the podcast is Write Your Outcome. And it's basically whatever life serves you up, you get to write the outcome. So you still have choices. And that's the biggest problem with power is we don't think we have any. And so my goal is to get people to write their own outcomes, and it's WRITE. What's the outcome you want is the W. R is notice what resistance shows up. Oh, I can't do this. That's not for me. I'm not good enough. Intentionally choose a better thought that's going to help you get what you want. WRIT. Take a step up, what I call the emotional ladder, and then Energizio, take an action. So a lot of people in our society run on adrenaline versus alignment. And I said it before, you get much better results when you are aligned versus running on adrenaline. And I work with a lot of high performers who normalize crazy, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I wrote this book to help people access their true power. You have so much power. All of us have so much power. And when we align it, again, picture driving a car that's in beautiful alignment. When you're aligned, and picture a car on alignment going on a really fast road. When you're on an aligned, like a race car, it's hugging the road, you're driving 70 miles an hour, it feels so good. The minute it feels bad is when you're out of alignment, when you start to lose control. So a lot of people are trying to go really fast and they're not in alignment. It's really fun to go fast when you're in alignment. So that's what the book is all about. I think that's a good.
Michele, if someone wanted to see your website or read more about you, about your background, whatever, is there a website that you have?
Yes, energizeyourhappiness.com will bring you to my book page on my website where you will find everything. Energizeyourhappiness.com.
And my last question for you before we go is this. As an author, is there anything I've said to you about your book today that gives you a biggest smile of all? You see how I got something because you wrote to reach an audience. Is there anything I said today that said, hey, that Bobbio gets it?
You do get it. And the fact that you used it for your speech, that really touched me. And I love that you have all those little stickers in your book because that really touches me also.
Oh, you saw my stickers. Okay.
Yes.
And this note, we're going to have Michele back on another show in the next couple of months with Juliet Hahn, who is a friend of hers, who has some great stories. But for today, Michele, it's always a pleasure. It's really nice seeing you again. If I had one thing to do over my life, I'd learn how to ski. You know what I'm talking about? I'll talk to you later. This has been Bobbio Potzner on this Bobbio Show with Michele Phillips. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you.